Punch it!
Hello there. My name is Logan, but you can call me Copycat99. And today I'm going to do the first deck tech on the channel. Since I lean towards a control play style naturally in card games, I thought it would be fitting to do a control deck as the first one. So today we're going to go over Admiral Trench Colossus. Now, why Admiral Trench, may you ask? So on his front side, you can exhaust him to discard a card that costs 3 or more, and then draw another card. This helps you dig through your answers and help sculpt your hand, so you have the right answers at the right time, which is pretty paramount when you're playing a control deck. And then, once you have 6 or more resources, you can pay 3 resources as a non-epic action to flip him. He's a 4 or 5, and then when you deploy him, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Your opponent discards 2 of them. You discard the 3rd, and then you draw the 4th. So what I like to think of it as is you draw the 3rd best card in the top 4 cards of your deck. And you can just start spamming this repeatedly at the late game, which gives you inevitability in card advantage and damage, because you can just hit them with the Trench over and over until they die. Now, since Trench is a value engine out of the leader zone, of course we're going to play Colossus to supplement it, give us a little bit of extra HP versus a more aggressive slanted decks. And that allows us to get to our inevitable late game where we're just slamming bombs and wiping the board every turn and flipping Trench every turn. Let's jump into the main deck. First off, 3 Dr. Pershing. It's pretty self-explanatory. Of course, a card that draws a card every turn potentially in a control deck. You need a lot of card advantage to be able to have the right answers and enough answers to kill everything your opponent plays until you get to your bombs. So obviously we're going to play 3 Pershing, 3 Bazine. I almost never play Bazine from hand unless I know she is going to kill a turn 1 unit, because being able to smuggle her versus discard or in the late game to take more important cards than they have in their opener is a lot more important. But she's also very important for ripping restock and control mirrors, so you kind of have to play some number of her. And there are ways to bounce her in the deck, so you can really abuse the when played there. 3 Contracted Hunter. This is a new personal favorite of mine for hard control in set 4. It is basically Power of the Dark Side, because it sacrifices itself, but you get to choose where it goes. So if your opponent has a really important ground unit, like a Regional Governor blocking SLB, or a General Hux giving their whole board raid 1 or something, you can just get it with the Hunter, and sure, it sacrifices itself, but you're probably playing the 3-cost kill spell anyway, so you might as well choose where it goes. Now we've got 3 Bounty Hunter crew. It's a control deck. Your best cards are Board Wipes and Vigilance to mill out your opponent and out-heal them. And obviously, using Bounty Hunter crew to get extra copies of those important cards is very good, and he's a 4/4 ambusher, which does come up and kill things sometimes. 3 Cad Bane. Cad Bane is insane. One of the best cunning villainy cards in the game. Being able to just capture your opponent's whole board and develop a 7/7 is ridiculous for 7. And a common playline in this particular type of blue-yellow hard control is you play Cad Bane and capture their whole board, and then maybe kill a unit. Smart people won't use the rescue part because drawing a control deck cards is a bad idea. But then they answer him, and then on 8 resources you Super Laser Blast anyway, and you kill all the captives that they just got back for answering him, and you just really blow them out. It's really oppressive, and it's one of the strongest cards in the deck. 2 Snoke. Another important part of the inevitability of blue-yellow control, being able to potentially just like invalidate most of aggro and even mid-ranges units in the late game by making them super small, and you get a 6/6 that can start applying pressure and maybe actually kill your opponent. Full 3 Redemption as a 10-drop. Healing's really good when your opponent's trying to kill you. So being able to play Redemption and heal 8 and develop a 6/1, 6/9, essentially 6/1 Sentinel is great. And you can self-bounce it with Waylay and Evacuate and reuse the effect because it's on a unit, which you can't do with Vigilance. So that is why I am liking Redemption. 2 Avenger. We've been running Avenger since set 1. It helps you actually kill your opponent. It clears Relentless. There are many reasons to run it, but it's another just part of this insane late game where you just get to this inevitability where you're killing literally everything and developing threats and healing and milling them out. That is all the units in the deck. As I said, it is a pretty hard control deck, and most of those are really just events disguised as units, like Bounty Hunter Crew and Contracted Hunter. For the events, 1 restock. You have to play at least 1 restock. Even if you aren't playing in a control mirror, Trench sometimes mills himself out. Like, you can... Every time you deploy Trench, you discard 4 cards from the top of your deck. 3 into your discard pile and 1 into your hand. So being able to not accidentally lose the game by milling yourself is very good. You put the restock back, and then you can get Super Laser Blast back and just wipe your opponent's board every turn. You can get Redemption back and start healing, and get Vigilance back and just delete their deck in a couple turns. Really flexible, and then it's extra good in Trench where you can get yourself to 0 cards in deck very quickly. 2 Waylay. Only on 2 slots we're getting kind of tight, and I'm already on 54 cards. But being able, it is a very flexible card. It adds an it's extra copies of Power of the Dark Side and Merciless Contest, essentially more removal at 3-cost slot that also in the late game can bounce your Redemptions, can bounce your Bazines, can bounce your Bounty Hunter Crews and give you more access to those one-plate effects. So I've been liking 2. 3 Power of the Dark Side. Power of the Dark Side is just ridiculous. Of course, we're playing 3. Being able to kill, if you keep your opponent's board to 1 unit, being able to kill their only unit for only 3 resources is insane. And because we're on 3 Power of the Dark Side, why not play 6 Power of the Dark Side? We're also on 3 Merciless Contest, which is just Power of the Dark Side on another name that sometimes you have to defeat your own unit, but we barely play any units, so there's very little downside to it. 3 Takedown. Takedown just answers a lot of the annoying mid-game threats that Control dislikes, you know, attack giving them a ton of resource advantage, a Kira blocking your SLB, a leader that is attacked into your trench. Very flexible and pretty cheap removal card. 3 Vigilance. This card is insane, even for 6. It's so flexible. You can mill people out with it. You can outlast people with the healing mode. It has removal. You can shield your heavy hitters, your Snokes, your Avengers, and prevent them from dying to Devastator. Like, obviously, you're paying 3, and mill is a very real win condition with this deck, so having access to it is very important. 3 No Glory Only Results. Another insane set 4 control card that basically, a lot of the problems with the deck get solved by this card. Used to be that on-death discard units were really bad for control. You know, K2SO, Senatorial Corvette. And being able to just steal those, and then not only do you get to kill the unit, but you get to steal the discard trigger and make your opponent discard. It just really, like, extra punishes those cards, and it makes them really bad into control instead of really good into control because you get at least a 2-for-1 for it. And it also kills Lurking Typhanum and Chewbacca because you steal the unit before you defeat it, so by the time the card kills the unit, it's as a friendly ability. That was another big problem for control that this card fixes. This card is an all-star. It solves so many problems. It is amazing. 3 copies of Evacuate. To get to the late game, you have to wipe your opponent's board at least a couple times, and Evacuate is the cheapest board wipe in the game. Sure, they get the cards back in their hand and get to replay them, but this just resets their board, and then they have 1 turn to rebuild and attack with their units on 7 resources before you threaten SLB on 8. So it really puts them in like a really difficult spot if they don't have a large leader where they can't apply any pressure because they can't fully rebuild after the Evacuate, and otherwise they risk just getting super blown out by a Super Laser Blast. But if they don't build up fast enough, they don't apply enough pressure, and you get into that late game where you are just going to absolutely obliterate them. Speaking of Super Laser Blast, 3 Super Laser Blast. Again, you got to play enough board wipes to finish the game, clear your opponent's stuff out, and this is just the most unconditional one. 2 Nebula Ignition. If basically copies 4 and 5 of Super Laser Blast. It has this interesting interaction where if you play entrenched or perilous, mainly entrenched, if you put entrenched on your opponent's unit, Nebula Ignition won't kill it. So you can get an opponent's leader like perma-stuck with an entrenched if you play no ground units, and you just are wiping with just Nebula Ignition instead of Super Laser Blast, which is really funny. And pretty powerful, too. And then you can also... and, you know, like, if you don't want a Ruthless Raider to die and burn you, you can put Entrenched on it, and then Nebula Ignition won't clear it. But its main purpose is just extra copies of SLB in the deck. 3 Entrenched, basically a 2-cost kill spell. Like, you put it on a unit that's annoying, like a leader, and then they can't attack your base, and all your units don't really matter until super late in the game, so it basically just removes them from doing anything remotely relevant. And, like, the primary downside of the card is, like, if you entrench your opponent's ground leader, and then you want to flip your leader, traditionally, like, then your leader just gets sniped, right? But with Trench, you draw a card, and you don't mind redeploying him, so if all they're doing is spending their entrenched unit, killing your Trench so you can flip him and draw more cards, you're pretty okay with that. And then, to round off the deck, 3 Perilous Position. This is a slot I'm not 100% sold on. It answers Lurking TIE Phantom, which is somewhat important. That's mostly a sideboard card nowadays because of all the new space units, but it also taps leaders, it can tap Han, it can tap Anakin, so it's pretty flexible, and it does kill units sometimes. And that's all for the deck. As I said, it's 34 cards already, which is kind of a lot, but it doesn't decrease your odds of finding a particular card by too much compared to 50. And with the Trench ability, you can cycle a card every turn and just dig for whatever answer you need. So I haven't felt too bad running over 50 so far. Anyways, that is my take on Trench Colossus. If you like this kind of content, if you want to see more from me, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps me out. It helps the channel grow. Makes YouTube like me more. So yeah, that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.